New this morning, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the IDF is, quote, moving toward full control of Gaza. Overnight, Israel launched major airstrikes. Since Saturday, the Hamas-run Gaza Ministry of Health says Israeli strikes killed more than 160 people across Gaza, including many women and children. ABC's foreign correspondent Tom Soufi Burridge is joining me now for more on this. Tom, great to see you. Tom, Netanyahu's office says a, quote, basic amount of food will be allowed into Gaza. And this, of course, comes as President Trump voiced concerns about starvation in that area. So what is the plan right now to bring in aid?
Yeah, I'll get to the plan in a second, Stephanie. I think, we've had this statement from Benjamin Netanyahu. It's fascinating. And the reason it's fascinating is because the Israeli Prime Minister says that Israel is letting in the, quote, basic amount of aid into Gaza, not for humanitarian or moral reasons. In fact, the Israeli Prime Minister really hits home in this statement that he is doing it because of pressure from Israel's closest friends, i.e. key figures in the US government, members of Congress. And the other important thing is the plan, which Netanyahu spells out. He says it could be in effect in a matter of days. This is Israel's own new controversial plan to provide aid in Gaza, but it would be nothing like the distribution of humanitarian aid earlier in the war by aid agencies and the UN. It would be the Israeli military and private companies, American companies, strictly controlling zones where people would be vetted within Gaza to see if they could get access to humanitarian aid. Now, Israel says it is doing this to prevent, quote, aid falling into the hands of Hamas. But aid agencies in the UN have completely rejected this plan, saying it runs contrary to the basic principles of the distribution of humanitarian aid. And they accuse Israel of using the distribution of humanitarian aid in its military strategy in Gaza, something Israel rejects. I mean, what is not clear right now is when the humanitarian aid will get in, this minimal amount, which Israel is promising in the near term, and exactly how many trucks. Reports suggest it could be as few as 9 trucks. In normal times, even without a humanitarian crisis, aid agencies would want hundreds of trucks to get into the Gaza Strip. But the humanitarian crisis in Gaza right now is absolutely severe. Aid agencies saying it is the worst it's ever been. People are eating animal feed. They are boiling grass simply to try and get anything in their bodies. And it's not just food. There is a lack of medical supplies. There is a lack of fuel. There is a lack of water. The situation in Gaza right now is absolutely catastrophic.
Absolutely dire situation and such a decrease in significant amount of aid. Tom, let's talk about Khan Yunis. The IDF has ordered evacuations of Khan Yunis more than 18 months into the war. What's the significance of this?
Well, we see Israel publishing these warnings on a regular basis. So these are symptomatic of Israel's escalation of its military operation. Over the weekend, it said it was launching a full-scale operation in the north and the south of Gaza. We've seen in the last few days hundreds of civilians killed, according to the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry. The videos coming out of Gaza right now are hard to watch. There are a lot of women and children caught up in the fighting, as has been the case throughout the war. But it's clear that Israel is escalating its war right now. And all the same, they are conducting negotiations in Doha indirectly with Hamas. Now, at the moment, there is no sign that those negotiations are leading to a new deal, a new ceasefire, and potentially the release of more hostages. That is the hope for so many, and the end to the suffering in Gaza. But there are some subtle signs, some subtle reports that suggest that we are at the most hopeful point ever since Israel restarted its war at the end of the last ceasefire just weeks ago, that there could be some hope of a breakthrough in those talks amidst a lot of US pressure. President Trump, you're saying, has really doubled down and suggested that he now wants to see an end to the war in Gaza. Stephanie?
An incredible update, Tom. Thank you very much. ABC's Tom Soufi Burridge.